CMMS Radio talks about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, focused on maintenance management. It's the people, the process, and the culture that make your CMMS journey a success.
All right, welcome back to CMMS Radio. We are coming to you live from Streamline Asset Management User Conference. We're in Greenville, South Carolina. We're with Joe Caetano and Stephan Schomberg. These guys are with Elevotec, and we're doing a dual guest episode. So first of all, gentlemen, welcome to CMMS Radio.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Fantastic time, and kudos to the entire team that's put this together, and certainly here with you today. It's a fantastic time.
Yeah, and you know, I got to give a shout out to Reliability X for setting up this badass rig where we can do this nice recording, and Digital Thinker is a big part of that too, getting me out here so I could meet you fantastic practitioners. I love talking to practitioners that are kind of out there really doing the work. We talked yesterday, Joe, about kind of your background in poultry and all that. Stephan, I want to first kind of start with just a little bit of background. What was your indoctrination into the industry like? Where did it start? How did it happen?
Well, I started pretty young. I remember when I was 18 years old, I started working in a plant, and I was the tool crib attendant. So that was my first job, and then sort of worked my way through the plant. Within about 8 years, I was plant manager. So I've done a lot of stuff, and when you have fiscal responsibility for plants, you want to make sure that you have maintenance. So I got involved a little bit in that at that level. And after spending 20 years in manufacturing, I started doing this crazy software implementation stuff, and did a lot of ERP systems, so enterprise resource planning, and worked with a lot of manufacturing companies implementing, and just kind of grew from there. And about 10, 15 years ago, I bumped into this Joe Caetano guy, and I actually invited him to come into one of my factories and help me put together an asset management system. And so here years later, we ended up bumping into each other again and started a company, and nice. Now we're helping a lot of other people.
So with that, when you guys help people, do you go in together, or do you kind of split up and take different contracts, right? You're coming into a plant, helping them out to get organized, understand how they can improve their asset management, or maybe even introduce asset performance management. Nowadays, that's kind of really trending well. Do you go together or separately?
Well, so I'll answer first, but we complement each other with our skill sets. So, we do a lot of solutioning. So, I did a little talk yesterday here about picking a good solution partner. I think part of it is, we're not just there to walk in and, magically turn something on for somebody. I think the more important thing is we get in there and we understand what the customer needs, how we can help them, and then as a team we kind of work together on filling that gap for that customer.
I like it. So, Joe, what would be the difference for you? Like, what are your focus areas that that might be your long suit, right? Where you have your strengths, and then how then do you figure out when Stephan should be getting in the mix?
Well, to add to what Stephan was saying is that we both are very, very passionate about process, and one of the key qualities that Stephan brings is certainly the high-level view, and then we both bore down into solutioning right down to the end, and I think that's one of the things where we complement each other, because my background is really deep on the maintenance practice side, and sometimes when you get so far down there, you need somebody that you can come to and say, hey, is this even practical from a business side? Is this even going to make sense? And that's where we spend a lot of time together. I call it calibrating.
Yeah.
Because sometimes he needs to kind of reach in and just say, hold it. Just get out of the weeds there a little bit. And then sometimes we'll have a conversation, and maybe we're flying a little too high. Maybe we need to descend about 10,000 feet to try to get the entire party to play. So I think that's where we really come together, because tremendous amount of experience, vision, certainly the just the ideology and the mindset around that, and you couple that with getting in some of the weeds and not staying in the weeds, is a really good compliment. And I think that's why we bring solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we want
so
to partner in solutions.
that's essentially why and how you partnered up, because you can cover more of the bases together.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, I think just to build on it a little bit, like I said, when we first met, it was more like I realized we had, as a company, we had these shortcomings, and we needed somebody that could get in the weeds and actually figure stuff out. And I didn't have the tool set to do that, so that's why I met up with Joe and brought Joe in to start with to work on that. And we became friends and started a company after that. But it's sort of like bottom up, top down approach, right? I had more of at the beginning I had more of a top down approach, working with the C-suite and trying to figure out, okay, what do we need to do in the organizations? And so I bring some of that to the solutioning, and Joe brings the bottom up. He says, okay, I understand what you need to do. Here's how we put the two together.
I love that, because you and I actually talked about that on the episode we did yesterday.
Yeah.
So this is ideal, and it's one of my favorite things to talk about, how that kind of top down, bottom up, how those things can potentially converge. So first, for you, Stephan, what do you think is the biggest barrier to making that happen when it comes to, say, maintenance, the maintenance team, building their case for what they want to try to do with, say, for example, Hexagon, or when they're early in implementing all these different things when it comes to the process? What do you think is the biggest barrier for them to communicate properly to leadership, and how do they overcome that barrier?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, because I've worked with some large companies on that specific problem, and I think the biggest thing is that the maintenance people need to realize is that they're not the ones signing the check on this, right? So they have to, at some point, build a business case to get the C-suite to sign the check, right? So, and the C-suite, they kind of have this impression of maintenance like it's like electricity. Well, as long as it's on, who cares, right? Like, there's no real driving force there. As soon as the plant stops, then everybody gets shit, but they don't really kind of put the two together, right? So for them, it's educating the C-suite to understand how maintenance actually helps the company and is vital to the company. And then when you've educated the C-suite on that focus, then they're more receptive to hearing the business case from the maintenance team as to why I need a bigger budget, why I need extra people, why we need to actually plan better, why we need to have somebody dedicated to planning maintenance, how we're going to then connect with manufacturing to make sure we get the downtime in the right places, all these things. So it really is a bottom up, top down kind of philosophy. And like I said, before Joe and I met, I was working with companies work with them on the higher end, trying to tell them you need this stuff. And now I've learned a little bit of the bottom end. Joe knows the top as well. He's been managing plants as well, so he knows both ends of it. So now I've come a little bit closer to the bottom, and Joe's moving a little more to the top, and we're a really good team now.
That's the best thing about the more time you spend, the more time you collaborate, whether you're there with the client or not.
Yeah.
You start to learn one another's perspective, but you don't try to be the other guy. You just try to incorporate that, and we've heard it for years. We're going to always be talking about this, but that level of collaboration, and it really works that way if you're kind of intentional about it, you're available, kind of open-minded about it, right. Avoiding the blame game, because that doesn't help anybody. I want to switch back to you, Joe, and I want to talk about this concept of like the heroes and why that's not the right way to be when you're in the maintenance operations, what the dangers are of the hero mentality.
Oh man, that is like the cardinal sin. At the end of the day, everybody in maintenance are heroes. Because, I equate a lot of stuff to sports. At the end of the day, whether you're playing hockey or football, it takes every man on the field or every man on the ice or every man on the pitch to work together to get the goal or to stop the goal. And to think that one hero could shoulder all of that responsibility, that's big. That's a big ask. So getting them involved and them understanding the value that they can contribute with the equal opportunity to own that responsibility, but to also celebrate it. Celebrate it because nothing's perfect in our world, but guess what? If it was down, it's running, that's a win. That's a goal.
Yeah.
You know, if it runs 10 days longer than it did in the past cycle, that's another goal. If you spent, I don't know, $10,000 less dollars maintaining it, you just scored another goal.
Yeah.
So we've got wins on the board, right? We got goals on the board. And I think when we remove that single hero mentality and it becomes a collaborative joint effort, guess what? You're scoring lots of goals and you're headed to a happy place.
Yeah, it's like there's no I in team.
Right.
But if you want to be a smart ass about it, you could say, well, if you play with the letters, there's a me.
Yeah.
So I want to switch it now to, I was asking about how you, first we'll go with you, Stephan.
Yeah.
When it comes to, the maintenance team building their case, they kind of know what they want to do. Now you're helping them speak that language that kind of might talk a little bit to the balance sheet. They're showing how, hey, if we can do this, we can add value, help us do better at this. I want to switch it to the other way around. When it does come purely top down and leadership says, hey, we've got this or we're getting this and you're just going to do it, do you do things to help them understand how to, at least a little bit, speak, understand, and empathize with maintenance and what they really do? And what I'm really getting at is, what is there a secret or a perspective that you try to help them adopt to quit looking at it as just a pure cost center and to start looking at it as either a revenue generator or revenue contributor? A lot of people don't like when I say revenue generator. I like to keep it simple, and I think they're both the same, but I'm kind of wrong about that. How do you do that? How do you build that case for them to say, hey, look at these guys? Is it like, hey, get out on the shop floor? What do you do with that?
Well, there's like you're saying, once the company has decided they're just going to buy this software and they say we need to improve.
Yeah.
Well, I think like part of my talk yesterday, I talked a little bit about why are implementations successful and why are they not successful. And one of the things that's I think is very important is that people have the misconception that when you're implementing software, it's a technical thing. It's really 75% of the project is really the people and processes. And if you don't do that part right, it doesn't matter what technology you buy, it's not going to work. So I think what happens now is when we're big on change management as well. So I think what happens is you have to build that trust with your maintenance team to say, okay, this is going to be a positive thing. We're going to make sure you're trained, because what happens when you push stuff down on teams, whether it's maintenance or manufacturing or anybody, there's a resistance, right? And you have to break down that resistance to change first of all. And then once they start understanding that this is a positive thing, they start looking for ways of using it to improve. Okay, so you have to break that negative barrier first. So anything gets pushed down, like I've been on the plant floor. I used to be a shipper receiver. I worked as a setup operator. And, management's telling you got to do this, right? So right away there's resistance. So you have to kind of work that through. And we're in the middle. I think we were talking earlier about we're kind of like that marriage counselor, right? We're here between the software companies and the maintenance people, right? We're telling the maintenance people, lower your expectations, telling the software companies, you got to get the software working better. And it's the same way with the C-suite and the floor.
Yeah.
We're in between there too. So we're telling the C-suite, oh yeah, you're going to get your ROI out of this. And we're telling the maintenance people, hey, this is going to be a lot better for you. So the people and process communication is really the key to getting anything done at those levels, right? Because you're always in between. Yeah. And if you can't communicate.
Yeah, then you're cooked, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it sounds so simple, but you have to, I always say you got to be intentional about it. And again, broken record, but it's that simple, but it's a lot of work, and you have to be willing to not give up. You also have to kind of be willing to fail, and instead of, bringing back that blame game thing, so I'm going to switch this back to you, Joe, when you start to get some progress and then you see maybe some fatigue, right? Maybe I think we've talked about when the maintenance team, or maybe you've got operator buy-in and they're willing to participate in the system and go, okay, I did this and this, and I'm going to put in a proper work request, work order, whatever the hell you want to call it, right? There's this thing about reinforcing that, but there can be the fatigue where something happened, maybe because they see leadership isn't paying much attention, they're doing what they were asked, they've bought fully in, and then how do you recognize that, and then how do you fix that so it doesn't go completely off the rails? And we're keeping with that kind of marriage therapy or maybe maintenance therapy theme.
Yeah, so it's a fine balance to try to monitor that and manage it. And look, I'm a tear the bandage off type of guy, and if somebody had said to me, look, we're putting this system in, you got to use it, and if they stopped watching it, I'm kind of the guy that would bang the can and say, hey, you told me to do this, now you're not watching. And that usually follows a conversation of, well, 3 months ago, we were down less, now we're down more. So raising awareness is probably the biggest part of it. And I think what needs to occur in a lot of situations, whether it's top down or bottom up, doesn't matter. People need to talk. They need to raise awareness, start a conversation. Like, at the end of the day, we had a purpose. And what's happened? Has the purpose kind of lived itself out? Or are we just under a different management style that believes a little bit differently? Well, let's dial it back here a little bit. Let's have a conversation, because at the end of the day, and it's no different with any other part of the business. I don't see senior executives or leadership, going stale with their accounting. Right?
Yeah, they're hyper focused on that, and
right?
That's that. I sometimes think of it as, and I'll say it here, like the balance sheet bullshit.
Right.
And it's real. It's important. It's a critical component of everything. It's everything. But I'm trying to get back to what's in the middle, people and process, like we've talked. Yeah. So I think when it's kind of like when you get past that hard initiation of those communications, and you've got more of a constant communication loop, right? It's actually coming back, everybody's involved. They can start putting all that BS behind them, and now you start getting that alignment. And we talked about it like we're, all right, let's calm them down, let's bring them up. And now we start to get a little bit more of a proper dance. Yeah. You've got some, hey, you got to do this, and then you've got, hey, this is why we do this, and you've got some, yep, and it's working, guys, and it's like almost like volleying, right? Mm-hmm. Back and forth, or whatever you want to call it, anything that's analogous to that.
Good game of pickleball.
Sure, I mean, why not, right? That's all the rage these days, anyway. And if you're flowing, and that's what it's all about. We want to get more throughput. We want people not getting injured. We want people not stressed out. We don't want unexpected downtime, mm-hmm. right? Unplanned downtime, whatever you want to call it. So now let's kind of take it home. So this will be for both of you. I'll start with Stephan. When it comes to asset management, with Hexagon or anything else, right now, what's the biggest thing that's on your mind that you want people to hear from you about asset management and what they could potentially do with their technologies?
Well, I'm really excited personally about the move to more mobile stuff. So right now, you can get alerts on your phone. You don't have to be, necessarily right there to be able to understand, operate, fix, move forward. There's so much more automation, so much more mobility in these new systems now, and driven right through to things like OpenCAD, where you have full CAD drawing availability within the application, so I can trace where all my fire extinguishers are, for example, if I want to do maintenance on them. Right through to linear assets and GIS and all these other things now that are part of asset. Like it used to be that your asset management system, you've got a work order, and you completed it, and that was all you could do. So you're kind of limited on the scope of what you could actually accomplish. Now there's so many things that you can add on to that even if I've got a good maintenance program, I can quickly make it better by adding some of these other features. So I'm excited about the new features and stuff that's available.
Nice. And what about you, Joe?
I'm going to tell you just like I tell all my hockey teams. We win and we learn. But the only way that happens is you got to get started. And there's probably so many people that just are overwhelmed or glossed over on where to get started. And in my very, very simple mind, at the end of the day, if I can get an asset register together, I can get a couple of PMs out, I just got more intelligent. I just won. And now I'm learning. If I can look at my asset portfolio and understand it a little bit more and what it looks like, how it contributes to the overall picture of the business, I just got smarter.
Yeah.
Because there is one reality, good, bad, or otherwise. At the end of the day, it is about cashing a check. And the only way you can do that is by sending an invoice. The only way you can do that is by delivering the service or the product. And the only way you can do that is by producing it. And nobody, and I think I said this to you yesterday, I said this to a senior leader, I said, do you ever buy a car to only have it run 75%? No.
Yeah, I remember that.
So at the end of the day, the goal is really, the purpose of trying to get as close as you can to 100%, but with the reality that there's nothing perfect in our world, there's nothing 100% in our world. Everything's at least 99.9 or less. So just get started. And you know what? I'm very grateful that you put a program like this together and people can listen because, hey, once upon a time, that's all I wanted to do is get started. And I'm very grateful to all of the people and mentors that I've been able to be around where they were able to nudge me. And all I did was learn, win. Just because you think you may have failed at something, well, I'm going to flip that cat upside down. You didn't fail at anything. You learned something you didn't know.
Yeah.
And now you're a little bit more knowledgeable. And you want to beat yourself up for some mental reprieve. Yeah, fine. Go ahead and do that. But at the end of the day, you just learn. And guess what? You're going to go make that step again. You're not going to make the same mistake again.
Yeah, it all creates an opportunity. And likewise, I want to thank both of you, Stephan and Joe, for being here with me, for doing what you do, and it gives me an opportunity to learn and, kind of capture these moments that might help somebody, maybe just one person.
Just
and that's
one.
all that matters.
That's
so,
all.
Guys, I hope you have a great closeout to the Streamline Asset Management User Conference, and I appreciate this time. Thank you for being on CMMS Radio.
Thanks for having us. It's been awesome.
Got it.
Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit cmmsradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS from selection to implementation to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.